get started here. Interesting thing, in the book I talked about doing some herbal experiments, and I've been doing a little here and a little there. It's difficult because I have to have the herbs all the time for a long, extended period of time to be able to see if there's any transition. But there are medicinal herbs that are used for compresses, things like that. So I've been experimenting with those. And the first building that was built in Thailand to start the clinic was built in the wrong direction. It faced it the wrong direction, away from the lake instead of at the lake. Who would build a house? So I get there and I have to get a whole crew to lift the house. It's on 19 pillars. They're about this big around, so thousands and thousands of tons, so the whole house. We had to put a hoist on each pillar, 19, a person with each hoist, and lift it up and move it an inch at a time. So it took 5 days to turn the house to the direction it had. And of course, the new foundation had to be put in for each pillar. But one of the loaders from the lumberyard misloaded, and one of the pillars that had square edges landed on my toe and split the toe in two, the bone in two and everything. I just, put the lime juice on it right away, and coconut cream and the meat and a little honey, and wrapped it, went back to work in excruciating pain. When you split a bone down the center, it hurts. And of course I had to stand on it. So about 3 days later, one of the native Thai people said, "Oh, you should take this particular plant, I'll grind it up and then we'll put it on that." So I did it. And what it did is it shrunk the flesh and made it 4 times worse. Actually pulled the skin back like it contracted it. Instead of growing it, it had allowing it to grow over. So I said, oh shit. So I took a piece of watermelon and made that as the outer bandage because I didn't want to use plastic. I needed it to aerate a little bit. So I put that and then the meat under that. So the watermelon would keep it from drying out and also sticking to the bandage as the bandage was, it's a cloth bandage here. So I wrapped it around and started going back and everything was fine. Then I went to Philippines and they had a same kind of thing with a different plant. So I thought, okay, I'll give that a try. My toe's okay. It's only hurting in the bone now, not in the area where the skin was split. So I put that on. It did the same thing, even though it was a different plant. It completely took all the healing away that had happened for 10 days. Completely reversed the entire healing for 10 days. So then I did the same thing, took the watermelon and the meat and put it back on. And this time I put a thick layer of watermelon so it would stay more moist. And so the meat wouldn't turn into jerky within 2 days because I don't like to change it to more bacteria. So I left that on the toe without changing it for 10 days. So it was jerky on there, stunk with all that bacteria, and it almost completely sealed on. So I'll just give you all a look at it. I think your dinners are over. And I didn't have a camera with me, so I didn't. But this is beef jerky now. That was watermelon on top. That was just a thin slice. I put that on 3 days ago. But what had happened was, you can see the toe's almost normal now for the skin, except it's a little red. But all of the skin was gone from here down to here, all the way down to the red area. All that skin was gone. Now, I didn't put anything on this, just caught it too. And you can see that the bone, the nail bruised underneath. And I didn't put anything on that. This was the same brown at first. But with the meat on there, you can see how clean the nail is underneath. No bruised tissue, no red blood cells accumulated under this where I had the meat and the other ingredient. So that gives you an idea of what the body can do if you let bacteria grow, and meat is your, your sealer. I thought for sure I was going to lose that nail. You see, I might lose this one, but I won't lose this one.
What are you going to do if you lose that nail?
I don't lose it. I can see how it's growing inside?
Yeah.
Okay. I lost the skin all the way here, all the way down. There was no flesh at all.
So the meat was first, then the watermelon?
So the lime juice, that's an antiseptic.
Right.
For the, not for antiseptic for bacteria and microbes, but an antiseptic in case there was some tar on that lumber or some other agent, toxic agent on the lumber. So the lime juice chelates it, anything like that, and arrests it. So your body doesn't have to use white blood cells and an infection to harness those toxins. So I didn't lose, this didn't pus once. I didn't have any pus, I didn't lose any white blood cells from this. It was major.
Hurts you?
Oh, it did. It was excruciating.
No, now.
Oh, no. I mean, it hurts a little bit because the bone is fractured up here as well.
But if you put sandal,
Pardon?
okay. If you put clothes,
Well, yeah. If the fold presses on it, it does.
so Aajonus, if you put the meat after the lime?
I put the lime, then I put honey and coconut cream on top of that, and then the meat. Let's keep the meat from drying out so quickly. And then
What kind of
on
meat?
top of that, watermelon. You could also use grapefruit flesh. You know, the white inside is a bandage, and that'll keep it. But it dries out a little, still meat will dry out faster. But all the skin was gone from here, all the way down to here, and all the way up to here. And each time I used that herb, each one of them, all of the skin disappeared. All that healing disappeared. In 24 hours. I don't even remember. I got it written down. There's a Thai name, Philippine Tagalog name, or Visaya name.
And how often did you change
I've only changed it 4 times.
over a course of how long?
3 weeks.
The inside or the outside of the watermelon?
The rind, the white.
Oh,
The
okay,
white.
the outside.
Yeah, the white.
Same with the grapefruit, you use the peel.
Yes.
Okay.
Does it matter what kind of meat you use, or whether it's fat or
I always use sirloin. It's wetter.
just lean?
Yeah. No, there's a misconception about that. Sirloin is not lean. It just doesn't marble. When you feed an animal grain, they will store fat deposits. When they're getting the fat from the plant, that is all saturated. So it saturates all throughout the tissue. Like chicken, they say, oh, there's not much fat in chicken. Chicken, you boil the chicken, what happens? All that fat runs out. That's because it's permeated into the tissue perfectly. So when they say something is very lean, they just mean that you haven't fed it a lot of grain-type foods where pockets of fat will form.
So why did you use jerky?
Pardon?
Why did you use dry jerky?
I didn't. It dries into jerky.
Oh, it turns into
Yeah, it
jerky.
turns
I
into jerky eventually.
make your own jerky.
But it acts as a scab. So your body doesn't have to build a scab. Because if you build a scab, it's attached to the other skin, and it doesn't allow it to grow as easily.
Exactly.
So if you create a natural scab, the toe can grow quickly.
Right.
Now it's just 10 days ago, 11 days ago, that I had used that herb, and it shrunk and got rid of all that tissue that I had grown for that 7-day period before that.
And somehow it feels from the inside out. I have a friend who actually she cut the inside right here, but it's feeling from the outside and now it's from the inside.
Well, if you use this way, you can see it was healed inside and
Right.
out.
And so that whole, because it's just poking me out from the inside.
Okay, let's start with questions.
Oh, I was just going to say, so when you
Yep.
take a bath or anything, or, whatever, you just...
I just let it go in.
Oh, okay, and it still stays on.
and it's supposed to merit mine.
That's me.
You overpaid.
I overpaid,
Well, it's supposed to be 35, but
Oh,
I
it is?
mistakenly said 30.
so I'm the only one who paid 35?
Okay.
No, there are 3 people that pay 30 there.
So I should take a,
Is it 30 or 35?
The flyer says 35, right?
Yeah. It's
Oh,
You
okay.
brought it. Evidence.
so my question is, should everybody else pay or I get my?
We're past today.
Okay. Question.
Um,
If you don't have one, you
I
come
don't
back.
have right now. so-
Okay. You have a question.
Yeah, I have a friend back home, and he wanted me to ask you. He was growing up, he had really, really bad acne, and they made him take a drug called Roaccutane. And
Accutane.
Accutane. And he suffered from massive depression from it, and he's on the diet now. And he was just wondering, is there something you can do to like detox that out of his system, or he's still got quite bad acne at the moment.
First of all, acne is the response of the body to get rid of poisons out of the brain or in the jaw, in the mouth, out the skin. 90% of toxins are supposed to leave through the skin. Acne is a good thing. If you've got the poisons inside the brain, it's going to continue to do damage as long as it's in the brain or anywhere else in your teeth, wherever it is. So having acne is a favorable response if you look at the damage done to the skin that would have been done internally to the brain or whatever. I prefer the skin to get damaged. Other people may prefer beauty, or aesthetics over functionality, but I prefer functionality over beauty. So it's your choice. Now, as far as the Accutane, it's a very dangerous drug. It was intended and made, according to one interview I read by one of the scientists who was involved in creating Accutane. They knew that mainly adolescents were going to receive it, and it has a tendency to make people depressed. So that meant get the kids on drugs, more and more and more and more drugs to handle depression. So it is made to affect the nervous system and brain. So his body, your friend's, her question was, she has a friend who has a lot of acne, took Accutane for it, and he suffers depression. And he still has acne even though he's not taking it. So to clear that out of the body, it's not easy. It does attach to metals. That's how they affect the brain and nervous system, is by having metallic attachments, whether it's aluminum or cadmium or mercury or lead, whatever it might be. Usually don't use lead for a neurological toxin because it causes too many problems that you can see right away, and then they get caught. So they're very delicate about what they formulate, so they can't easily scientifically be held responsible. So it's like the cigarette industry putting ammonia in a form that was not traceable, once it's smoked. But what the ammonia would do is release the nicotine quickly and get into the nervous system and create an addiction. So that's the kind of thing that these big corporations do to make money. They don't give a shit about you at all. So you're just a money machine to them. So getting rid of the Accutane, cilantro can be helpful to it. Berries are very helpful. Blueberries, blackberries, boysenberries, raspberries. Dates are helpful when your dates are eaten with butter. Dates and butter together. That will help more the depression. Because the pectin is a pectin that can be, you can't digest pectin, they say. However, in my experiments, in laboratory work, I've seen pectin from dates, not apples, not berries, but from dates enter the nervous system because of the high nicotinic acid, the niacin, vitamin B niacin in the dates. So it's very helpful to help depression. You can get cheese, even better. You can help pull out the poisons. So you get cheese, butter, and dates together. It would be very helpful.
Okay.
Do you have a question, Eric?
Yeah, I do have a question. It's a question that concerns kind of the relationship of detox and skin problems, skin issues. My father had a lot of problems with the skin, and I have some skin problems as well. Even though I had what appears to be very healthy skin, I've had a form of shingles, which is a form of herpes virus in the past. And right now I'm struggling with a bad rash here, ringworm. And I'm wondering, I started the raw diet about 2.5 months ago, and that's when I noticed this get started. Some itching back here under my arm. And being an idiot, I decided not to go to a doctor. Not that you have to go to a doctor for everything, but I used the wrong thing on it. I was using a kind of natural-based cortisone, which is what you don't want to do when it's a ringworm, because it just makes it spread. So now it's gotten pretty bad. I guess
Well, it doesn't make it spread. You have to understand, you've got a whole concept that the pharmaceutical industry has beat into your head. Their chemicals cause more skin reactions because the skin's trying to throw it off. And when you have Accutane or you have some kind of a steroid that you're putting in the skin does not want it. It throws it off. If there's not enough fats in the glands near it, the lymphatic glands, to handle neutralizing the toxicity, then it's going to pull the fats out of that skin, and the skin's going to dry up. Then what they think is a ringworm, it's usually pockets of fat, the lymphatic fluid that build up in that area, and that becomes a cyst where it attracts the poisons to try to deal with them because they can't throw it out the skin easily because there's not enough fat in the skin. So you have to think entirely differently. It's always chemicals that cause the problem.
Okay, well this started, I wasn't using any chemicals, and the cortisone I use is the natural stuff we sell in Whole Foods.
Do you use a deodorant?
I only use sea salt water and
Terrible chemical.
sea salt.
Sea salt. Yeah, it's an explosive. I've said this before. Salt, sodium, when isolated, is more explosive than nitroglycerin. The military gave General Electric $2 billion over the last 60 years to make an explosive out of sodium. They can't do it, it's too volatile. 2% temperature change explodes. One block of pure sodium is worth an atomic bomb to level the city. So that's why they want it. So I tell everybody, there's somebody who put from my word, they took fresh frog legs, freshly slaughtered, put salt on them. Those legs are just jumping all over the place. They put pepper on some and just one twitch. Now pepper you think burns and hot and do damage. However, if you understand the chemistry between the two, that sodium is an explosive, you see why that. And it goes on. They sprinkle it on once and they leave the camera on for 3 minutes and it spasms the whole time. They're not putting more salt on it. Salt is a dangerous chemical. That's why the King and Queen of England went into the business. It made slaves of people, just like Hitler used fluoride.
So, in your dad, salt.
Yeah, but that will pull things out and break down the toxins in the water.
Okay.
And you also have milk in there to protect your skin.
Right. Okay.
So there's certain salts that people say now the Himalayan salt. See.
It's salt is salt. It's concentrated sodium. And when it goes into the body, your body separates so much of it, isolates it into pure sodium. So it goes around blowing up cells.
So should
And
we stay out of the water?
it clumps together.
Should we stay out of the water and also not use bath salts?
Yeah, you can use bath salts as long as you put milk in the water too.
How about the ocean then?
If you're going to do that, you put some kind of oil on your skin first. If you don't have good oily skin, you put olive oil or coconut oil, or rub avocado in. You look a little green. It will protect the skin.
Well, what about the fungus, though? I mean, what causes your... Because some bodies react to fungus, some don't. And so my body seems to be very susceptible to fungus.
No, certain bodies use certain microbes as janitors. The people who have a high fungal reaction or yeast infections, their body utilizes fungus better to detoxify. And you've got fungal, you've got bacterial, you've got amoebic, you've got parasites. Of course, amoebic are considered parasites. But they're crossed, many of them are crossed between a plant and an animal, just like a mushroom is crossed between a plant and an animal. And the mushroom is a spore, a fruit of the mycelium, which is fungus. So when you look at a mushroom, you're looking at animal cells in a plant form that reacts phytotropically, with the sun, as well as eating organisms. So your body favors fungal detoxification. So you don't look at it as the negative. That's what the pharmaceutical wants you to believe, so you will attack yourself.
So the ringworm, then, how do you deal with that?
The ringworm is there as part of an intense fat situation, so your body doesn't have to use a lot of white blood cells. So ringworm is a great thing to have.
So it spreads?
It's handling all the toxicities coming out of an area.
So is there another way to have that happen besides if you're ringworm? Well, in other words, do you detox some other way?
Well, you can help it. You can mitigate
by
the necessity of the fungus to do so much work by applying coconut cream or butter. Depends. What you have to do is everybody's chemistry is a little different. So sometimes the primal facial body care cream works better in most situations. Okay? But sometimes it doesn't. It takes just coconut cream, pure coconut cream, or just butter. That you have to, and on some infections, some skin detoxification, you have to experiment for that particular case. So there's no blanket, I haven't figured out a mathematical system to figure out which is best in any other way except experiment. However, sometimes I can look at tissue and I can say butter will work here, coconut cream will work there, and I can tell by looking at it. But if somebody tells me they've got a rash without seeing a photograph, I have to guess.
Were you saying that deodorant is bad in general?
Pardon?
You asked them about deodorant. Were you saying that deodorant in general has things...
Any kind of deodorant is horrific other than lemon or lime juice. Okay, you have a question, Fred?
Yeah, this has to do with like taking cheese 10 minutes before you eat. I just want to understand that better. Does the same happen if you happen to eat something else? Like if you drank a little bit of milk? You haven't eaten anything or drunken anything for, let's say, half an hour, right? If you take a little bit of milk or happen to eat a little bit of fruit or just take a bite of meat and then waited 2 minutes, will that have the same sort of, will that pull because it's 10 minutes before? No, it has to be cheese?
If you do milk, it will to a small extent, but it's liquid. As it absorbs, it's going to dilute and then still wash into your body and get into your other food as it comes through. Because it takes 20 minutes to enter into the stomach, minimum, unless you're just drinking fluid. It takes 20 minutes to get solid foods to clear the stomach, minimum. So you've got that milk with those poisons in it. It's not going to keep it from diluting the hydrochloric acid that's going to come in 10 minutes later. It'll be produced 10 minutes later, and you're not going to chelate with all the poison. When you've got a dry substance like cheese, it's going to absorb those poisons in the first fluid as you dump. Remember that most people put their worst toxins in the stomach lining. Why would the body do that? Because the stomach manufactures hydrochloric acid. Hydrochloric acid dissolves bone. The only thing that hydrochloric acid doesn't dissolve is its own stomach lining. Think about that. So it's a good place to store something highly toxic and caustic. It's not likely to cause the stomach lining to deteriorate and get very diseased and toxic for the rest of the system to break down and deteriorate. So the body stores a lot. I find when I look at iridology that it has a lot of formaldehyde, mercury, and aluminum in the stomach lining. That's the soup of vaccines. So I see, and probably 85, 90%, probably, I would say 87% of the people I see have that chemical soup in their stomach lining. Now, every time you eat, your body's going to get rid of a little of that at a time. And it's going to poison the rest of the body as it moves in your food digest. If you eat the cheese 10 minutes before, guess what? It's not released. It's not digested unless you eat honey with the cheese. The honey has to be directly mixed with the cheese. Then you will be reabsorbing your poison and digesting your poison. But when you eat raw, no-salt cheese, it will not digest. It comes out almost exactly the way it went in my laboratory analysis of feces. When you mix it with honey, it doesn't come out. It stays in the body. Yes. Well, you don't want hydrochloric acid. It's a chemical formulation. It's not a natural, unless you're eating stomach lining of some animal. But it'd have to be a carnivore, because the hydrochloric acid in herbivores is an alkalinizing agent to break down the protein. For cellulose, it isn't anything like what we have. You'd have to have a lion's stomach or a bear's stomach or pigs or something like that in order to get the proper hydrochloric acid. Or you drink beet juice. 2 ounces of beet juice a day will keep you producing a fair amount of hydrochloric acid.
Well, is cheesecake then bad for you because it's cheese and honey?
Well,
Do you recommend some people eat
if you're trying to remineralize the body because you have bone deterioration, osteoporosis, you can't eat cheesecake. Wonderful. But what I'm saying is before you eat, let's say before you eat cheesecake, have a piece of cheese without honey in it. There you go.
Is there a period of time?
I'm sorry. What does that do? What is that eating the piece of raw, unsalted cheese 10 minutes before you eat? What exactly does that do? It doesn't dissolve in your system, but how does it help you?
It absorbs the poisons that are dumping with the
So it
hydrochloric
becomes like
acid.
an ability to transmit some of those poisons through your
It
system.
absorbs it,
Right.
and then you don't digest it.
Got it.
Well, you also add butter to the cheese.
You can add butter. It doesn't. If you use butter, you might wait 15 minutes, 12 minutes after, a little bit longer.
So if you eat the cheese like a half hour ahead of time,
That won't work.
that won't work. So it has to be just about 10 minutes.
It takes about 40 minutes. The stomach works in 40-minute cycles. Just like we have dream states that we go into REM every 40 minutes. I won't say that. Man has an erection every 40 minutes in sleep. And that's because of a particular sleep pattern that goes on. Women do too, they just don't like men. Anyway, in the stomach you've got a 40-minute cycle. So if you eat the cheese, you wait 10 minutes, you got 30 minutes to eat your meal. Because when you eat first, the body will start dumping poisons from the stomach that it needs to get rid of. If you stop eating for 10 minutes, it stops dumping poisons with the hydrochloric acid. So then you eat your meal, so you get the hydrochloric acid with the poisons. At 40 minutes, all of a sudden the poisons start dumping with the hydrochloric acid again. So there's your boundary. You have the cheese, you wait 10 minutes, you start eating your meal, and you've got 30 minutes to finish.
What about before you have the cheese? Is there a period of time you can't eat anything or drink anything before you have that cheese?
No.
So because I'll be sipping milk.
I do all day long.
So, okay, let's say I have a sip of milk. 5 minutes later, I'll have the cheese. That's okay?
It's okay.
Okay. Oh, and can you?
Sipping milk.
Sipping
I
milk.
don't drink a half a cup of milk, and then 5 minutes later expect to, take the cheese and it work proficiently.
Is cottage cheese the same as cheese?
Yes.
Same way.
Cheese is still dry.
Still
Not
dry.
as dry as hard cheese, but it's still very dry.
And if you want to get the minerals with cottage cheese, you have to add the honey, or can you just eat cottage
You have
cheese?
to have the honey.
Even with cottage
Even
cheese.
with cottage cheese.
Okay.
It's so dehydrated.
Wow.
Cottage cheese is dehydrated, is that what you just said?
Yeah.
So regular hard cheese is more hydrated. Okay.
Hard cheese is more dehydrated than
That's
cottage cheese.
I thought you said the opposite. I was confused.
If I did, I made a mistake.
Okay.
I didn't think you.
Okay.
Do you have a question?
I don't right now.
Okay. Do you have a question?
Yeah, I have a bunch of friends that are going through menopause, and I will be soon, I'm sure. And I just started on the primal diet like 3 months ago. So a lot of them are turning to natural hormone replacements and creams and stuff like that. And I'm hoping to avoid all that with the diet and everything. What have you seen with menopause and the diet?
The reactions have been varied. Probably 60% of the women, even if they were in their late 50s, who went on the diet, got their periods back. They weren't regular, but they got their periods back. And I don't think a woman on the diet has gone over 67 and still had periods.
But I'm talking about like issues around menopause, like hot flashes and constant bleeding and all that stuff.
There's only one person I know that continued that through the whole process of her menopause, and that's Catherine right here. She had heat flashes for 5 years. Yeah, something like that. Yeah, but she's the only person that I know that suffered more than, let's say, 5 heat flashes that last 30 seconds a day. Those are easy to get to. That 30 seconds may feel like an hour, But all you have to do is just take a cold cloth and put it right here.
Well, I tell you something, the surgery is a big part of it, Cause
what?
The surgery, when you have a surgery, removing an ovary.
Oh, yeah. Because they put iodine and radioactive iodine in there, or liquid mercury, and that damages all areas and screws up hormones anyway. Because menopause, like I say in the book, it's not a cessation of hormone production, it's just different hormones. You just change it. In other words, instead of producing hormones for reproducing, you do it for vitalizing the skin. More of your own cells can regenerate. Women live longer for that reason. Also, they discharge a lot of toxins out the mucus in their vaginal areas where men don't have a detoxification like that. So women want to live 20% longer because of those reactions. Men should be lucky enough to have hormones where they can just switch over, in their 50s and utilize it for reproducing their own cells faster as growth hormone. But if a person isn't eating properly, if they're not eating raw animal proteins and fat, they're not going to change over properly, and they're going to have a lot of ill symptoms.
So it's better to avoid the hormone replacement therapy and...
Hormone replacement is going to make it worse in the long run and going to make you susceptible to cancer. Uterine and ovarian cancer.
Even the natural ones are good.
Now, there's no such thing as natural ones unless you're eating desiccated ovary. Raw, desiccated ovary. And I don't know anybody. They sell pig's testes, but I've never seen ovarian tissue in one of those supplements. You might. And anyway, ovaries are very difficult to find because they're so small, in any animal. So, and they're around all of this uterus. So most butchers don't even look for them.
Amos would have it because I asked him one time. Amos Miller.
Yeah, but he's giving you the whole uterus. I've seen it. Because he doesn't want to search for the ovary, They're not shaped the same way that we are. The women are. So it's a little bit more difficult to tell where the ovary is. because the ovary in a bovine and a buffalo is very well shrouded in extra tissue, and you have to cut that tissue and you have to find it and then remove the ovary. So it's difficult. Or you could get, a gopher or something like that, a squirrel, and then just eat the whole uterus.
I'll just deal with the hot flashes.
There you go. Do you have a question?
Sure. I'm going to do some traveling, God willing, to Europe and Canada and maybe some other countries, and want to hear suggestions for eating on the primal diet while traveling.
Well, if you want to go to Europe, it won't be as easy unless you're going to Italy or Slovakia. In Italy, they have 1,300 vending machines that you can go right up, put your bottle up against it, and raw milk. 1,300. They just started this week in Slovakia. They've now put in 600 of those machines, those dispensers. So you just take your container up there, you turn it, put your money in, turn it on, gives you a quart. Well, there it's a liter. So you get a liter of milk, raw milk, right from the machine. There are 2 companies that do it, and they're not fighting any government over it. Right there in the machine.
There's one guy in Germany.
Pardon?
There's one of those in Germany.
Really?
Yeah, just one.
One. Where?
I don't know. He sent me a picture.
Huh. Well, somebody's trying it out there. I don't know if they're going to get away with it in Germany. But what you have to do is you have to go online wherever you're going. Try to find where the farm areas are, where they concentrate more organic consciousness farmers. You make your trip there, that's the first place you go. You get enough food for 2 weeks, get a hotel room with a refrigerator, take out all their soda and alcohol, put it on top of the refrigerator, put your food in there. Or you get one with a kitchenette. And then you got all your food, you prepare. The trick to staying on the diet 100%, if you want to do that, is you prepare all of your foods for the entire day in the morning. And you take them with you. You're going to go out, let's say, from 9 o'clock in the morning till 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Take your food until 8 o'clock, because you never know what might happen. Give yourself no excuse to go to McDonald's or wherever to eat some cooked junk food. And it makes it very easy. It only takes 45 minutes to an hour to prepare all the foods for the day, from the time you eat your cheese till you finish your meat in the morning. All of your food's prepared. Everything's easy. The whole day is easy. There's no standing in line at Starbucks or the donut shop or wherever. You don't have to go to the grocery store and shop and stand in line. It's all right there in your cooler. And you don't even have to put cooler bags in there.
What about green juices? Should you just skip them for the time?
You can pretty easily get green juices almost anywhere. In Asia, I eat mostly sugarcane juice because it's very easy to get. But there's a lot of places that actually have juicers. That there is health consciousness going on in these foreign countries. Probably won't find it out in the Tulies except for sugarcane juice. And when I go shopping, I look for the dirtiest places to go, the poorest places that aren't buying from big markets, that are getting their foods from local farmers. And it's got flies on it, I eat it. And they'll be around, they have a little flag thing they swish, or they got a little, fan on a stick, and move it over to keep the flies off. That's where I shop. Usually the meat has been slaughtered the night before, and I'm getting freshly slaughtered meat that day. And even if I don't have a refrigerator for 24, 48 hours, the meat will get bacteria ridden, but it takes longer to break down. When we get meat here, it's slaughtered, 14 days it's hung before it even goes to the market. Has to be aged before it goes to a market. So you're not getting meat. Usually if you go into a supermarket here, no matter if it's Gelson's a better one or not, that meat is usually 17 days old.
You also have done backpacking for 5 days and carried organic beef that I've gotten here.
Yeah, I do the same, but I put it in jars with some coconut oil. Coconut oil still will slightly ferment, but I don't like the acidity of the olive oil. It gives me indigestion, but you might handle olive oil fine. You know, just put enough olive oil to coat the meat, and then you put it in jars. I backpacked in Hawaii through Waipio Valley with my hammock in 1991, and I took a quart of 2/3 butter, 1/3 honey, and it wasn't until the 9th day that it even started fermenting. But I was able to live on that honey butter a lot.
You're lucky that your glass jars didn't break.
Pardon?
You're lucky that your glass jars didn't break.
Didn't break, absolutely. But I made sure I packed towels around them or clothes around them. And then they were in Ziploc bags in case they did break. One did break, but that was on an airplane.
What do you generally eat for breakfast?
Pardon?
What do you generally eat?
I'm not going around asking questions. We'll get to you. Okay? All right, next. Kathy. You have a question.
I can't think of it right now. Let go
We'll
around
come back. Okay.
Yes, I have a question. Can you explain the look of healthy mold on berries? Because whenever I make the moldy berries, the mold comes white, gray, or green. Which one is the best?
All of them are good. You want the variety, unless you're prejudiced. Are you racist toward molds? They're all good. Well, the white ones break down sugar better. The black ones break down the fats better. The grayer ones break down the proteins better. So you need all of them.
Mold on what?
On berries. Mold on anything. Those colorations, it's usually really breaks down. Do you have a question? Okay.
Yeah, I have an infection, like my eye, that's eyelid. I've had this 3 or 4 times being on the diet, like I don't know if there's poison coming out. What would you recommend to put on that to help swelling?
Well, does your eye leak
Yes.
fluid at night? And is it white or does it harden and crystallize?
Kind of hard to crystallize.
Okay. So you got a lot of salt mixed with some kind of other minerals coming out. Like I say, it can cause a lot of cornea damage. So you won't put egg white in your eye once or twice daily. Definitely before you go to sleep, because most of it will come out at night. You know, it's probably lodging in your tissues as a way station, and then it will come through the tissue underneath and then leak out at night. So you don't want to push it to come through the skin, because then you'll damage your skin, and then you'll have a nasty scar there. Yeah. But a cyst, remember, a cyst is always a tumor that is filled with a fluid that neutralizes localized poisons before they discharge to the skin. If they weren't neutralized by that cyst, those poisons going through the skin would cause huge ruptures. And you would be pussing out huge holes in your skin, wherever it would be. So that cyst is a good thing. You just protect your cornea at night. You put the egg white in both, yeah. Now, there are some people that use butter, and butter is excellent. I haven't done as many years experimenting with the butter as I have with the egg white. But I had one girl who had Coke bottle thick glasses, and she wanted to improve her vision fast. So, and she was, a very smart young lady, and started using butter in her eyes. Her eyes improved to like 50% in 1 year. Yeah, by putting butter in the eyes.
At night it burns though.
It stings at first. But and it takes longer to break it down, so you don't have a fog over your eye than the egg white. Egg white's instant. Absorbed. Egg white is almost the exact formulation of tear, the tears, the fluid tear. But it has a little bit more protein in it to feed the cornea in the eye. So I like that because it feeds the eye better. However, butter will protect the eye and cleanse it better.
I might add that anything else that you get, any other medication you get burns like heck anyway.
Absolutely.
So,
Well, the butter doesn't burn it, it just stings.
You just have to take,
Sting. And it stings 10 seconds.
yeah.
just take a dab, a tiny dab on your thing.
You can melt it. Melt it on your hand until it gets liquid. Put it on the bottom of your finger, just like I do the egg white. I pull the eyelid down, I look up, I rub it along the white of the eye, I take both eyelids, and I go around like a circus master and get it all coated. And that's it. That's all there is to it. I used to take it and put it in an eye cup, wash the eye, and then spend hours getting the egg white off, and caking and getting all over my eye. Pardon? Yeah. Well, I've seen that it works faster for some conditions than others. I do both. Put egg white in the morning and butter at night. Okay? Do you have a question?
I asked my doctor about my
I was asking this young lady right here.
Okay, I'll ask this question. What do you usually eat for breakfast?
Pardon?
What do you usually eat for breakfast?
I wake and I eat cheese. After that, I suck an egg or two. After that, I eat my meat.
No juice.
So,
I thought you had the juice in the morning.
I don't do much juice anymore because it disturbs my whole balance and everything.
But that's not.
So I have my juice later.
Not,
But for almost everybody else, you have your cheese, you have your juice with egg, or egg and then juice, and then egg again, depending upon your condition. And then you have your meat.
So the no cheese in between there?
Yeah, you can have cheese in between.
Oh, okay, so in other words, you take time, okay.
Yes, Mike.
I asked my doctor about my headaches, and he says they're tension headaches. So what would you smile, but that's what he said.
Tension headaches, and where does tension come from? Toxicity. Chemical poisons. And that's mainly industrial poisons. Your brain was full of them. How long did you go before you went to a good diet? You ate additives that are in your brain everywhere. That's what creates problems. It's like in 1967 through 72, 5 or 6 universities in Canada pulled together and took children from the age of 7 to 12. And they watched children eating foods that had additives in it, and then other children that had no food additives plus organically raised food. The ones that had the food additive food, even though they were both cooked diets, mainly cooked diets, the food additive kids had all the tension, upset, bad grades, poor attention spans. The kids who had no additives and no chemicals were perfect students. No complaints, no arguments, sit, learned fast, thought fast, quick, everything. What happened to those? They were released. It was publicized for 1 week. It should be drilled in everybody every day. But who runs the country? King and Queen of England own 70% of all food processing in the world.
Really?
They run the world. Plus 13 or 12 other families. But the King and Queen of England are the biggest. Catholic Church is the next.
No.
King and Queen of England own a tremendous amount of property in the United States through trusts. Almost a third of the country, land through trusts. Most of the government land is really owned by the King and Queen of England. Okay. Piece of information. Yes, sir.
Okay. Yes, I've been eating white meat, raw chicken, almost 100% of the time as my meals. And lately, my body's been craving more red meat. So, do I bring in more red meat? And if so, how much do you recommend?
Well, if you're craving your red meat, I would eat it until you're satisfied. You know, if it could be, try 1/4 red meat. If that doesn't satisfy you, go to 1/2.
Okay. Yes. And as far as eating the proteins with the meat, should the cheese and the butter be eaten?
You mean that with the meat?
That with meat. Should it be eaten simultaneously with the meat, or is there any order of preference?
It's on the quantity. If you're a weightlifter or bodybuilder and you want to develop big fast, you have a full lubrication formula with the meat. But you want to have maybe 3-4 tablespoons actually with the meat, and then the rest of it following. Because your protein is going to help you digest that fat. If you put the fat in, fat takes 3 times longer to digest than proteins. So it's better to have most of the fat after if you're having a lot of fat. If you're only having 1.5, 2 tablespoons with the meat, you know, have it with the meat. As a sauce or just with it or however you like.
Okay.
How much after? I mean, when you say after, you mean
We're talking 10 minutes, 15 minutes. I mean, there's some people, especially if you're a weightlifter, you produce burn a lot of energy. You can just gulp stuff like that. I can't. You know, I'll sip it. There's that much fat, one time.
But you want the fat within the 40 minutes.
Oh, absolutely.
You look thinner than I remember you looking fast.
No, I'm not as thin as I've been. The last time I was here, not the last time I was here. When I came back from getting all those injections, I was in worse condition.
Right.
However, I got slimmer here this time because just in the last 10 days, I had those same chemicals that were coming out that caused all the scarring. All this scarring here came out my upper back. So for the last 10 days, look at this. See all that old flesh-looking stuff? You ripped a lot of the muscles out to handle with that toxicity because I'm underweight. If I had had enough fat on my body wouldn't have had to take my muscle along with fats along with the muscle to repair it. But my whole back was just blistered.
Everything looks thinner than I remember last.
Well, I'm finally losing all that baby fat that I've had for so many years. I'm finally looking like my mother. She was Indian, part Indian, and French and American Indian, and had a narrow face. But I was so pumped with so many injections in my gums, never got rid of it. But now I'm getting rid of it. I'm looking like my brothers, too, who are like these two.
I want to know if I can have my question now, or should I wait until I...
You can have it now.
Okay. The question is that, I don't know if it's true or not, the reading somebody told me, the dyslexia comes with being left-handed. It's in the, his book on encyclopedia and the internet.
I was terribly dyslexic, and I'm right-handed.
I just still can't. I'm slow in thinking. I'm slow in moving.
Well, that's just because your brain is separated. When I look at your irises, your brain is fractionated. You don't have. They're not working together. Your motor and sensories are not working together. Going through the senses, it takes quite a bit of time from the analytical process to get to the motor response. So you're having a slower time with that. Okay, so I was the same way when I was autistic.
What is that
from? They could give me an idea. It could take me 20 minutes to figure out 2 words.
They say move.
It takes a while to respond. That's what I mean. Your senses are perceiving it. Your analytical process decides to move. But from the process to the motor responses is a very long gap.
I've been on the diet now 12 and a half years.
When I met you, you were like this.
Okay.
I don't know. That's the way you used to talk. Look at you now, can't shut you up. And I love it, it's wonderful. You look great. You remember when you first, your skin was all gray, you had black patches all around. You look wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, just because you're not completely well in 12 years, it takes 40 years, like I said in my book. I still have 11 years to go for my cycle. And I'm still dealing with people trying to fuck me up, as well as me screwing myself up too with motorcycle accidents and all kinds of things. And workers who drop things on my toe. You know, so.
Keep clear.
Yeah. Well, I'm doing okay.
Yeah.
You know, I'm 63 years old, so working on my 64th.
Getting better.
I climb up the mountains.
You know, you're getting better.
And I leave people 35 and 40 years old way behind.
Age is not a number in ourselves.
It's health. Everything is health. Okay. Do you have a question?
Yes. Hi, Aajonus. A couple questions. I'm experiencing a detox.
Which kind?
Continual head pain.
And well, what kind of pain? Sharp, dull, pressure?
Pressure, pain, here. It's like it doesn't go away.
What does it? Up and down? When you get up, when you stand up, is it worse? When you sit down, is it easier?
Yeah, it's probably pulsates a little bit.
You got a salt headache.
Salt?
Causes fluids to collect. So the more fluid collects there to dilute the salts, the sodium, then the swelling. Now you don't have any nerves in the brain, so I could eat your brain and talk to you at the same time as long as I didn't destroy that part of your brain that's communicating with me. You wouldn't feel it. The nerves are in the skin of the brain, the meningi. So when the brain holds salt, sodium, and collects water, it puts pressure between the skull and the meningi, and that's a headache. Headache is never inside the brain, it's always in the skin of the brain, the meningi. So what you have to do is you have to get the skull to expand and allow for the swelling while your brain detoxifies. Okay? Well, the things that help get rid of fluids, some sparkling mineral water, grapefruit, those will help discharge fluids. That's why you eat grapefruit and you piss a lot. That's because it's helping you release water, fluids.
And my other question is why, with the Terramin clay, I'm really enjoying using that. Why do I put enough mineral water with that to dilute it and let that sit for like 3-4 days before I have it?
If you have it dry, it's going to stick to your intestinal walls. It's going to cake on there, and it's going to take months to dilute it and get it broken down. So your mucus won't be formed over it properly unless you produce a lot of mucus, and then it falls off of the mucus. And then you're going to show up with a lot of mucus in your stools. But that's a lot of nutrients. It takes a lot of protein to make mucus. If you look at mucus under a microscope, it looks like somebody's woven a fabric. And it can be anywhere from 12 to 16 layers thick. And it's just woven like a fabric. It actually is woven like a fabric, and it grows that way. The body doesn't sit there and weave itself, and then that's your mucus. It grows in those patterns, all ripped around each other, layer after layer. And when you have that good mucus, you protect the intestinal lining. You put dry clay in there, it'll cake on it, cause all kinds of problems, disturb your body. When you have villi everywhere underneath the mucus and mucus around it, the food passes through like you see, in I forgot what they call them, silites in the ocean. You see particles go by, and these things secrete fluids that break those down and then hold on to those cilia. And then the food is absorbed into the cilia, or a fish will come along and steal it, from the cilia. But that's how it breaks down. In the intestine, we have the same thing. These villi are broken. We call them villi in the human body. In the human body, Sugars will eat away these. By the time you're 50 years old, you have less than half of them left. They produce enzymes to help you digest. Now, enzymes in the human body and in most animals are there to break down larger particles of food so that bacteria, which should be 80 to 90% digested, infiltrate that food and eat it and break it down. Their waste is our food. So we live on feces and urine of bacteria, or parasites, So that's how we get our food. If you put clay in there, it disturbs dry clay, it disturbs the balance terribly. So you soak it. Then what happens when you soak it, its own bacteria. Now, clay is one of the most unusual substances in the world. It has amoebic-like organisms in it that actually shapeshift. They can become a malaria worm, a parasite to help us clean the blood, or it can become, a trichinosis bacteria to help us digest. It could become many forms of bacteria. Clay is the only food in the world we have that shapeshifts. Shapeshifts. Okay. So when you soak it for more than 3 days, that process is going. By the 4th and 5th day, it's strong. So when it goes into the body, it's like stem cells of a bacteria nature, or microbe nature, to get your probiotics going. It's the best probiotic you can have.
So like 4 days?
4 days is what I like. 5 days, 4 or 5 days.
4 or 5 days.
Then I mix mine in milk.
Yeah, I like chocolate milk. I think it is chocolate milk.
It does. It tastes like chocolate milk to a great extent.
Yeah.
Is it okay if it's much older than 4 days?
I keep mine up to 2 years.
Right.
I make a big batch of mine. I like mine as old as I can have it.
So
Finally, after about a year, I might get a little bit of molds growing in there.
So the older it is in the refrigerator, that's fine?
Pardon?
The older it is in the refrigerator, that's fine?
Not in the refrigerator, never refrigerator. Because then you will only breed molds. You won't breed bacteria or parasites. They can't grow in those cold temperatures. Only fungus can grow in those cold temperatures.
So what's the ratio again?
It just has to look like plaster of Paris. Depends on, when Terramin mines or any clay is mined, there are pockets that have more potassium or sulfur or phosphorus, and it makes it drier or wetter. So you have to do it on your particular.
How much do you leave a day?
Pardon?
How much do you leave a day?
Usually 1 tablespoon is good enough, unless you have a problem.
And just leave it out. Leave it touch.
What I do is I put a lid on it, not too tightly, and I put it in a dark cover. A low dark cover that's cooler.
Do you soak it in what you're going to consume, such as milk?
No, I soak it in water.
Water.
And then I take the I'll stir it before I take a tablespoon out, so it's like a plaster of Paris, and I put that into milk.
Got it.
And you take that out empty cup, or you take it after?
It doesn't matter. As long as it's with milk, it's not going to be a problem. If you're taking just by itself or with water, it's good not to have it around food. 15, 20 minutes before or after food. Well, probably 40 minutes, an hour after food. If you're going to have it in water, but in milk, it doesn't matter. Because clay and milk soaked like that is really a food. I mean, we don't digest earth like plants do, but when we have that bacterial action, the bacteria that is naturally in clay is breaking it down. Their waste is our food. So we get to eat the way the plants get to eat to a certain amount when we eat clay. Okay. Do you have a question?
What's your take on water?
You know my take on water. Water's only a solvent. It's a medicine. It's not something to drink for much value at all. Water is completely nutrient deficient. has a few minerals in it. And that's it. It is a starving water. What happens when it rains? It dissolves rock so plants can eat. It dissolves rock. It's a solvent. When you put it in your body, it dissolves your mucus lining. It dilutes your acids. It destroys bacteria. Except for amoebic type bacteria. They resist and respond very well in water. But the rest of your bacteria, which is 80% of the bacteria that's in the microbes that are in the intestines for digestion, are sensitive to water.
So even that Eon water or any of that stuff?
Any water's no good. I mean, it's good if you're using it to help make solvents in your body to get rid of some toxic compounds that your body can't do with good natural water and food. And remember, even meat's 55% water. Milk is 86 to 90% water. All fruits are 90 to 92% water. 100% water that you can utilize in your cells. You drink water, distilled water, you can only absorb 10% of it. And guess what it does? It dries out the inner side of the cell. When you take water from a food, guess what goes with the H2O? Nutrients. So, that's what I think of water. Yes. Bert.
I'm here because I've just heard that you cannot have radiant health if you have bad teeth.
You cannot have what?
Radiant health with
you can't have great health without teeth?
With bad teeth.
With bad teeth? No.
You're talking about radiant health.
I don't know. Well, you're not going to have radiant health unless, your bones are solid and good and your teeth are good. But you're going to have very good health. You can have very good health. I've seen many people with very bad teeth. I have very bad teeth.
But you have them repaired.
Yeah, but I've got caps on almost only this one is not a cap. All the rest are caps on top. And 4 caps on the bottom.
And your dentist in Mexico.
Tomas Breton.
I saw him.
He has a website. Tomas Breton. Britton.
Is he in Tijuana or interior of Mexico?
Pardon?
Is he in
Tijuana.
Do I need a passport?
Yeah. Yes, you do. Yeah. But you can get one 24 hour, 48 hours. Pay for it. $70, $75. No, $125 for a... Pardon?
$314.
For a 24 hour or 48 hour? Or?
They're not even instant 24, 48 hour or emergency passport. My appointment was on the 29th. I was meant to go to Mexico 2 weeks ago.
$300 and what?
$14. For a passport in 14 days. That's since 9/11.
Yeah, renewing's different.
Prior to 9/11. You had your passport prior to 9/11.
Because I pay $70 for renewal.
I paid 24.
I had to pay $75 because I travel so much. All of my passport was filled, and I just got it in, 2006. So it's completely filled by last year. So I had to send it back in. They wanted $75 to put 20 new pages in.
Yeah.
Why didn't you put 50 freaking new pages in? Another 2 years, it's going to be filled up again.
But since 2006, everything ships to the New World Order.
Yes.
Really infinite.
Probably will.
All the time just with this green card.
Yeah, with a green card you can do it with. But an American citizen has to have a passport. Figure that one out.
Right, you get a legal green card.
John, use metal.
Not on any of my patients.
Richard Hansen was the dentist in Fullerton. That dentist.
Yeah.
He doesn't use any metal.
No amalgam. I don't have any amalgam. The reason I go to Thomas Breton, he's a 3rd generation dentist. Even his mother and father are dentists. So he has a lot of experience, innately and everything. He does what I want him to. Even if he doesn't agree, he does not argue with me. He'll just tell me his opinion, and he does what I want. And that's perfect for me. Do you have a question?
Yeah, I can make you. My name is Pedro. My friend, she got a cancer in the stomach, and she also give you only like 2 months. She's very sick. You can't hear.
She's very what?
She's sick. Very sick. She can work. She told me, say to you, what you recommend. She got a stomach.
Stomach cancer. Is it only in the stomach? Starting to get into the liver and everywhere else. She can get some. Does she have coconuts where she is?
Yeah.
Okay.
She's being clean.
Oh, well, she can buy coconuts locally. She needs to make a coconut vinegar. And you make the coconut vinegar by taking coconut cream and letting it ferment. Then you separate the liquid. When the liquid separates, the water separates at the bottom. You leave that out until it turns into a vinegar in, warm weather. In light, it's a little bit better. You turn into bigger vinegar faster. So it may take her a few weeks to make it, or she can buy some apple cider vinegar. Apple cider vinegar isn't as good for the stomach as that is, as the coconut vinegar is. Then she can take 2 tablespoons of that in milk, like 2 ounces of raw milk every day, and eat cabbage, green cabbage juice. Green head cabbage, not the Chinese cabbage, but the head cabbage, green head cabbage. Juice it and drink 2 ounces of that 3-4 times a day.
The coconut?
Yeah.
The coconut too?
The coconut vinegar. She mixes a tablespoon of that in a half a cup of milk, raw milk.
Maybe you should have someone write it down for you.
Yeah.
You need someone to write it down for you.
Somebody can write and remember that. I think, are you writing that formula? Okay, see hers. You can copy. Is that okay if you copy it?
Sure.
Taking sue me. Okay, Roger, do you have a question?
Yes. There are some doctors that say you can drink coffee with caffeine that it helps with circulation and Alzheimer's, and others say it calls for brain.
If you have congestive arteries, if you have a lot of fat in your body that's not metabolizing, caffeine can be good for you. If you're on this diet, it's the worst thing you can do for your nervous system. That and chocolate.
Also, how about olive oil and flax oil? Which is better?
Olive oil is better. It won't harden. Flax oil will. That's why I limit it to no more than a tablespoon a day in my books. You could have 2 or 4 tablespoons a day of olive oil, but just remember, any pressed oil is 90% solvent reactive. It's going to be used for detoxification, whereas your animal fats like butter and milk and cream, they will nurture your body at least 50% and maybe lubricate and cleanse 50%. But that's the maximum. Normally in a healthy individual, only about 25% of it is used for detoxification. 75% is used to nutrify and protect the body. So I don't use oils very often and very much.
How about if you can blend it with cottage cheese?
Same thing. But when you've got a situation of cancer, you need solvents. So that's why I say in the book, people who have cancer have to have a tablespoon of flax oil a day.
What about hemp seed oil?
Hemp seed is almost like castor oil bean. Has the same poison. It can cause heavy diarrhea. It can cause some problems. It doesn't have the ratio of it that castor beans do, but it's still pretty high.
How about cod liver oil?
Cod liver is an animal fat. Wonderful. But usually it's processed with a kerosene derivative to pass FDA inspection. It isn't like the old days in the 70s. 78 it stopped. FDA came in and screwed up everything with fish liver oil. You could get an oil that stunk like fish. It was horrendous. It was cloudy. It was awful and it was healthful. And the FDA experiment says, no, you can't have any protein products in it because they can break down into bacteria, they can make you healthy, so you can't have them. It's basically what it amounts to.
Fermented raw cod liver oil.
Pardon?
Where you can buy fermented raw cod liver oil.
Yeah, but it's still not the same.
You can't get anywhere cod liver oil.
Not except if you have cods. Not unless you have the cod itself. Cut it open and butcher it and eat it. It's very heavy. Even the cod liver itself is a very heavy thing to digest. It's not as heavy as seal liver, but it's still pretty heavy. Hold on.
After all, some we sell cod liver.
You sell cod liver.
Where?
After all, some.
The cod liver. Oh, that's not cod liver. That's
On the subject of cod liver oil, what about this fermented one called Green Pastures?
It's okay, but like I said, when you ferment an oil like that, it predominantly becomes a solvent to cleanse the body. If you had the protein with the fat, the animal fat, it would be different. So if you want to have cod liver oil and to be more nutrifying for your body and not just cleansing, stabilizing and strengthening, then eat it with a meat meal.
Go to Rawson and get some cod liver.
Yes.
What was your treatment for fibromyalgia? What was your treatment?
When you've got fibromyalgia, you've got problems everywhere in the body. So it depends on what's poisoning your body. Mine was chemotherapy. When I was young, it was all tetanus shots and all the other injections that I got. I didn't want to move. I didn't want to get out of my chair. I didn't want to get out of bed because if I went like this, I had pain. Pain. It's like if you were to work out with a weight and you get to that point where it's just straining and burning and hurting, I just got that from moving. So it's the poisons in the body that cause that reaction. You have to get fat. So the fat starts absorbing the poison. Let me tell you, almost all of my pain went away at, I think it was 11, I was 10 years old. All of a sudden blew up and got fat. Huge. And I was eating and eating and eating, and I never be able to eat like that before. And most of the pain went away. But I was also addicted to chocolate-covered cherries. And I would go through a box of them in 40 minutes. So diabetes, everything was crazy there. Any kind of grain is a problem. Any kind of grain is a problem. Only I pointed out in my books for specific needs and problems, but they're very specific. So you just have to get fat. Somebody has fibromyalgia, has poisons all throughout their system. And you need to fill up with the fats to bind with those poisons to police them. You've heard the phrase fat and happy? Let me tell you, talk to the people who come to me that were skinny, that were always in aches and pains and fibromyalgia. They got fat, all their pain goes away. Except for the pain of being fat. Looking, not being fat, but looking fat.
How fat are we talking?
It depends upon you. You have to eat and get fat until you stop having pain.
Or do you mean just eat a lot of fat in your diet?
No, you need to put it on. It needs to be stored in your muscles, in your tissue.
Enough oysters in a year could it help you to detox 50% more?
It'll help you detox it. That holds 50% more. Relatively asymptomatically, which is good. Okay, you have a question?
Yeah. Talk about bread. I've been craving sourdough bread a lot. Does that cause dry fluid?
Oh, it'll dry up everything in your body. You're also going to feed penicillin and other nasty antibiotic fungus.
What if you put a
That's
lot
in
of
your
butter
diet.
on it? So what do I do about getting, like, out of that craving? It's getting really bad.
Well, eat the nut formula. You're craving some starches, but nuts is the place to get the starch. Nuts have a lot of starch in them. That's all we mainly digest of nuts. We don't digest but 2% of the protein and less than 1% of the nut oil fats from the nuts. But we'll digest up to 25, 28% of the starch in nuts. When you start doing that, you have it, it'll work, and you stop having all the starch. Yes?
I said, what if she just puts a lot of butter on just a little bit of sourdough then?
You're still going to have to deal with, with bread.
You're not going to toast it.
Doesn't mean it's already cooked. Sourdough bread is already cooked. It's just not burned. It's still cooked food.
So bread's more.
Well, if they're, like I said in the book, I say for hyperactive people that the nut formula doesn't work for them. Then they're going to have some starch, some cooked starch, some bread. But otherwise, the nut formula should work. But I even have 1/3 to 1/2 cup of rice here, cooked boiled rice here. When I get into Asia and I'm doing all the activity that I don't do here, I'm out climbing mountains, I'm building, I'm putting in the pipe system in the house. I was dealing with copper, I'm masked, I'm welding, and I'm doing all this stuff that I'm not used to being active. So I get very skinny, and I don't have cheese, I don't have everything. So I get too hungry, and then the acids in my intestines start making uncontrollably hungry. So I'll have about 4 tablespoons of cooked rice with about 3 heaping tablespoons of butter. That'll last me for a month. Yeah, a month. That's all I need for a month. That'll take care of it.
You eat it once and it'll last a month.
Yeah. Eat it once and it'll last a month. Good question.
Yes. Yeah, for somebody else, like mother-in-law. But a couple of months ago, she had a blood vessel burst in her eye.
In the cornea or deeper? Could you see it?
She lost about 60% of her eyesight. She can see it, but it's very dark.
I know, but did it happen in the cornea or deep in the eye?
That I don't know. The doctor said it's kind of mini stroke that you had and happened in the eye. Now, I remember in your book when your son had that accident, you fed him a lot of butter and honey to get that blood circulation.
Yeah, absolutely. You see, when you have internal bleeding, you have blood cells in areas where they're not supposed to be. So they block vision. So the body, it's like this toe here, you see it, black and blue? Those are red blood cells that got crushed out of the veins. Now they're into the tissue where they don't belong. Okay? My body has to break down those red cells and get them out. How's it going to do it? Now with this toe, I put the lime juice, and then I put the honey, coconut cream, and then the meat on it. And you see it grew out. There's no bruise on it. Oh, you weren't here when I did this. But there's no bruise on the toe that was mangled the worst. But the one I didn't treat has all the blood still under the nail. And this one had 20 times more than that. Yet because I put the meat, those other solutions on it, but mainly the meat, it drew out the red blood cells. The bacteria in the meat can digest those red blood cells. So it goes through my nail, goes through the tissue, went in there and ate up the red blood cells. They're janitor. So bacteria is the way. She's going to put raw meat on her eye at night. She will or not.
It's like with the eyes closed.
Pardon?
Eyes closed.
It will help. She could, put a piece of very thin slice of meat over that, It's something to keep the meat moist. I use usually some kind of fruit, watermelon, the white of the watermelon rind, you cut it into a thin little Band-Aid, and you put it over the meat, and just wrap it around the eye. You get an eye patch holding it on, and all night.
Any diet
Of course, meat, anything healthy. Pineapple helps break down clots. If she's bursting vessels, then she needs raw green head cabbage juice. And that stops strokes in a minute. You could have 4 ounces of that, and you won't have a stroke impossible to have a stroke for almost 6 weeks. Okay? Lucky, do you have Lucky's our host again. Thank you. You're looking healthier.
I've been experimenting with hot and cold. I'm going in like freezing water and then going in 120-degree water and feeling the sensations because it's so exciting.
Yeah.
And I just wondered if I'm doing this stuff.
If you're staying in 120-degree temperature water for more than 7 or 8 minutes, you're going to cause some brain damage.
Really?
If you're going into the cold water for more than a minute, you're going to cause some serious damage. Nerve damage. No. See, the Europeans, especially the Swedish, know this. They go into the ice cold water for 1 minute maximum, and they time it. Usually between 45 and 58 seconds, they're out, completely out of the cold water. But they only get into the hot water usually about 108, 109, 110 degrees maximum. And they'll stay in that. They'll stay in that for 45 minutes at a time. And then they go into the cold water. Or they'll stay in 10 minutes, go to the cold water a minute, back and forth. It's very stimulating.
It is.
Yeah.
I found it really painful to go from super cold to super hot.
Yeah.
It makes you feel better, but it doesn't.
Yeah, it's very taxing on the body. It causes massive detoxification.
So it's good then. Short term.
Yeah, if you've got enough fat in your intestines and in your nerves.
So eat butter.
Eat butter and cheese and honey. Butter, cheese, and honey. I would do that every day. Pardon? If you're going into municipal water with fluoride and other poisons in it.
Not a hot spring.
Not a hot spring, no.
Not a hot spring.
You don't put anything in a hot spring.
Not a tub.
If you got well water, spring water, you don't need to put anything in it.
I'll do a hot water.
No, only municipal water that has chemicals in it.
Well, the hot springs sometimes you call it the rocks. Minerals.
Yeah, but that's not full concentrated fluoride or concentrated chlorine.
Probably sulfuric acid.
But that's okay. Sulfuric acid doesn't absorb through the skin anymore. Fluoride does. It penetrates. It's like kerosene. Chlorine's the same way. Why do you think it burns people's eyes? Why do you think swimmers get so much asthma and allergies?
So saltwater pools that are done chlorine are bad too. If they put
Very bad. Oh, you mean the saltwater, the electrical chlorinators?
You put the salt in your pool and it turns into chlorine. It turns to chlorine.
No, that's a different kind. That has no chloroform. Doesn't form chloroform. Doesn't form the gas chloroform. It's a natural form of. See, chlorine. You've got natural chlorine and unnatural chlorine. The chlorine that they put in pools is a chemically made process with petroleum chlorine. It's made to eat into things, to kill. Normally, chlorine is a predominant part of hydrochloric acid. It's a nutrient, but when it's made to be a cleanser, it is not. It is not a healthy chlorine. So when you put salt in the water and then you have the electrical impulse that causes the chlorine to form, it does not cause chloroform reaction. It's still not good to eat. I wouldn't drink it, but it's okay to swim in. Everybody moved out of the sun over here down here. Okay, Joe.
I don't know what that is. We had a family, I don't know what it is here.
Well, then,
I can't
if
hear
you think of one, we'll come back to you.
Listen to what you teach.
Pardon?
Find what you teach.
Well, you just ask general or specific questions. If I know you, I can answer, but I haven't done any work with you.
I've been taking this long and this is a total 100% raw vegan.
I think a raw vegan diet is horrendous. I did it for 6.5 years. I went down to, trying to dissolve my bone. There's few people who do it. I've met 8 people out of 3,000 people who can do it. If you're a person who can do it, fine. He's an unusual guy. If he can do a vegan for that many years, unusual. Most people can't do it. Like I said, I met 8 people, and 7 of them were men. Your sister was one. She was the only female that did it. But then her spine started deteriorating at 34 years old. So she had to leave her vegetarian diet, vegan diet. Pardon?
David Wolf does.
No, he doesn't. I got reports 2 years ago, because I told David 8.5, almost 9 years ago. I said, David, you're no different than I am. You're going to hit a wall in 7 years, 7.5 years. You'll be eating bear. Oh no, I won't. Oh no, I won't. Almost a year and 7 months ago, I got a call from people who work with who's eating the raw cheese. He's eating the raw milk. And when I saw him last year in Hawaii, he was having a lot of dairy, filled up with all that dairy look. You can't get that dairy look without eating a lot of it. He does not tell people. That's why he's a kid. That's why people, see, he's got people who contract with him, they can't tell. They're not allowed to tell anybody. That's in their contract. No divulging. But they called me and told me. So, no. If you're one of those special people, fine. If it isn't, it's going to make you have cancer that you'll never reverse. Well, this diet reverses 95% of all cancers unless it's lung. Only 60-65% lung. Right? All cancer is created by industrial pollution. There is no other way of getting cancer. Industrial pollution can come from being a coal miner. You breathe on all that coal dust, all that mercury you're breathing in from the coal dust. Mercury is concentrated in coal. That's why it's bad for us to be burning it. We're filling the atmosphere with mercury. And these coal miners get lung cancer and emphysema and everything else. Why?
Here in Four Corners, the whole Four Corners area is full of all of those native people are getting very, very ill.
Even that, they have
leukemia.
More and more of the testing of the ocean with the animals that they're using to try to drain.
It's everywhere. Pollution's everywhere.
Even in Thailand?
Huh? Even in Thailand. They got Dow Chemicals over there in Mount San. They're working very hard. Very hard. They're getting wise to it. This year they passed an organic farmer support law. The government is actually giving them 42 million baht. 42 million baht or something billion American dollars. But still, they're supporting. Yeah. And where I am in the Philippines, the island I'm on is considered the organic island. And we've got famous organic people there. So I picked two right places. Where I had the land in Thailand, there's no chemicals used anywhere around.
What is the name of this place you're living in?
I'm not saying. I've already been attacked too many times. I'm just not going to say.
You're attacking everybody you know here.
No, who knows? Never know. When everything gets established and there's a lot of people around, I won't mind being there with a lot of people. But I don't want to be there when I'm the only foot on.
Is it far from Manila?
Pardon?
Are you far from
You have a question?
Sure. Well, I want to know if you can explain when you have to do the bathroom for 45 days with hot water, that you have to put something inside of the water.
It's in the book also, in the bath. But it's, you put like a half a cup of milk, 2 to 4 tablespoons of raw apple cider vinegar, 2 tablespoons of sea salt, or Epsom salt. And if you want to make sure your skin's really soft, put a couple of heaping tablespoons of coconut cream in.
Okay, not coconut oil.
No, if you want your skin to be really soft.
You say 2 to 3 glasses of milk.
That depends on what kind of water you use. If that water stinks of chlorine, you need at least a cup of milk in that water. If you can smell the chlorine,
Oh no, mine is totally good. That means I don't need as much milk.
then you take down to a half a cup.
If she doesn't have coconut cream, can she use coconut oil?
It won't. Well, you can use a tablespoon of coconut oil in the bath.
do it.
You may not even need a whole tablespoon of oil, maybe a teaspoon and a half.
At the moment, the beauty is
Yeah, but that's only because oil turns white when it's just like olive oil turns white too.
That's not good.
Pardon?
It's not good.
It's good, but it just doesn't work as well. With the oil, you don't have all the water-soluble vitamins. You have only the oil-soluble vitamins. With coconut cream, you have all the water-soluble vitamins as well as the oil-soluble vitamins. We only use 8% of the oil-soluble vitamins in our daily life. Just like vegetables, there's 6 to 7% oils in vegetation. We use more of the water-soluble fats. So coconuts are better that way. The whole coconut or the coconut cream rather than the coconut oil. Again, the coconut oil is mainly a solvent. 90% solvent reactant to cleanse the body. If you want to be into heavy cleanses, fine. It's fine. Oh, you use the mature one. You gotta be thick. Meat. That's gel. You can't make that with coconut These flattened coconuts, yes, that's what you want to use to grind and press. You know, it's funny. In Thailand, the word for coconut cream is gati. In the Philippines, it's gata. Yeah, there are, quite a few. Gata, gati. You what? Well, I'll eat that kind of shit anyway.
What about, did you say, which I couldn't hear you, did you say the young coconuts is not good to eat?
No, coconut's good to eat, but you can't make coconut cream with it.
You can eat it, but it's
Yeah, you won't make coconut cream. Pardon? Well, that's the ones that you get them here. You get them over there, and they're not dipped in phenol. Like on my property in the Philippines, I got like 60 coconut palms. And my foreman, he's up a palm tree in 1 minute, 60 feet high. He twists the coconut, falls down. I take my machete, my stainless steel machete, that doesn't get all the carbon all over I cut the knob off, and I have my young coconuts, and I spoon it out. Delicious. Fantastic.
So you're not getting your formaldehyde dose, though.
Exactly. Precisely.
Are those the two kinds of coconut? The baby and the other one, they both have formaldehyde?
No, what?
There's two kinds of coconut? The one baby and the other one, the hard brown one?
Yeah.
They both have formaldehyde?
No. Older ones don't. The younger ones do. See, the younger ones will ferment fast. Especially if they're dropped. They'll bruise and ferment fast. Old ones don't ferment. They mold. Okay. Do you have a question?
Yes, I do. Okay. Now, I've been on staff for 2.5 months. Some people have been on for 6. Everybody varies in the time of day they do their diet. And this circle, this fun diet, which I think is wonderful. It's the new diet we've been on that actually helps you gain weight and you feel healthy and stronger. And I thought it, I think it's great. In that circle, I feel like there's a little whitehead on it sometimes because you get constipated from this. And I'm thinking perhaps there's something in that circle that, I don't know if it's for each person, that is missing that doesn't just let your body celebrate taking a good dump since you're taking such a great diet.
Think about this. You were ultra skinny. You gained a lot of weight and she's still skinny.
I'm 2 sizes up from
Yes. You were so nutrient deficient and dry that when you put all this good food in, your body absorbs everything it can and you're dry by the time you get it out. That's why I say people who have constipation, it's not really constipation. Your body's trying to take every bit of nutrients it can because it's been starving a long time. It may take you years to get to it where your body says, okay, I'm not so desperate anymore. We're not going to hold on to this fecal matter until it turns into rock.
Female dog, when you can't take a good dump.
But you don't need to take a good dump. You need more fats in there.
Yes, you do. You do need to take a good dump because if you're releasing all of these toxins that are being sent out
90% of the toxins are supposed to leak through the skin, not the bowels.
Really? 90%?
90% is supposed to leak through the skin, not the bowels.
It's just this is a pleasant thing to be able to do. Joy in my life,
Okay. To the back end.
No, I tried that thing.
Do it again. Do it. If you're doing it right, it's not a mess.
It is, well,
Many times,
Huh?
many times she can go and complain, and I made her eat butter, and then she would fight.
I eat a lot of butter. I eat a lot of butter. Trust me, I eat a lot of butter.
Yeah, but your body is so starving. When before she started on the diet, she was as dry can be. She looked like, a desert with cracked skin all over the place. Look at her now. And she's complaining about slow bowel movements. Stick butter up your butt. Keep doing it. Keep doing it. That's part of your medicine. That's part of your medicine. That's your medicine. Yes, that's your medicine. I eat like you, and I'm shitting 3-4 times a day. I've been doing this for 30-some years. That's what I'm saying. This is your cycle. Then you're going to have more detoxification, more problems.
I don't mind having more detoxification. That's the best of my life.
Then you're not going to be controlled on the diet. You're not going to be as happy. You're going to be an emotional roller coaster. You have all that kinds of other problems. Just stick the fat up your butt. That's what you have to do to make sure you're balanced. And if you do that every other day for a while, until you've been on the diet long, your body isn't starved with the fats, and then go to 3 days, every 4 days, every 5 days, every month, once a month. And it'll get smaller, so you don't have to do that, but you're going to feel better. You start using crude, you start using fat, especially dried food, dried fruits. Yeah, you're going to move, but you're also going to have sugar problems in your intestines.
That's true, it is a lot of sugar. So fruits is not good.
Dates are about the only dried food that's okay. But I still never eat dates alone. I eat them with butter or butter and cheese.
Dry fruits.
Dried fruit.
It's okay. Dry, not dried fruit.
No.
Dates.
The dates are the only ones that are okay.
Okay, this is good.
Well, they're still difficult to digest, but they're enjoyable once in a while. If you want to make a recipe, it's better to make a pig recipe with them. Or if you just want to sit down and eat some pigs, enjoy with some cheese and butter.
How about mango and papaya?
Dried?
No.
No, with it.
Again, that's a lot of fruit. Papaya is the least in sugar. Mango's high in sugar.
Now that I'm like 99% raw and eat a lot of fat, sometimes at night I eat a mango by itself and it doesn't bother me.
Yeah, but you got the weight.
And
You got the fat on you. She doesn't.
And kiwis? Kiwis is good?
Kiwis is acidic, so it's not going to destroy the alkaline balance in your body, but it's also very acidic. And, you know, if you eat a lot of them, they're going to eat your tongue away. You know, so always eat some fat with them. Always eat some cream.
What kind of food you say? Dates.
It doesn't, no, I'm saying any fruit is okay as long as you're eating only once a day. No more than, for your size, a half a cup of fruit a day. Unless it's watermelon. Then you could have a whole cup and a half a day.
And kiwis, 3 is too much.
Pardon?
3 kiwis by day is too much.
As long as you have cream or some butter with it, it's okay. Yes.
You wouldn't miss me, would you?
No. Especially when you just bounced up with your back. Do you see how she moved?
Yeah.
This one could barely move a year ago with the spinal cancer. And it was like I was when I had the spinal fusion from the radiation therapy. Yeah, did you see her go? Yeah. Isn't that great?
Yeah, thanks, Mario.
That's wonderful.
My question is regarding cancer, and I've had this from a number of people too. So, women particularly, saying, are there different diets for different forms of cancer, such as there are some hormone-related cancers like breast cancer,
That's all bullshit.
where dairy is not recommended?
That's all bullshit. That's the pharmaceuticals ploy to get you to think that they're thinking about you by creating different chemotherapies. Well, we've got to use this chemotherapy to poison you instead of that one. So you've got all this bullshit stuff going on to convince you that they're smart and you're not, and you'll poison yourself. And that's basically what they're doing. Who is going to drink poison? Yet you're letting them inject it right into your blood. It's like vaccines. Hey, this is the picture. I take liquid mercury. I take liquid aluminum. I put formaldehyde. I put detergent. I put ether. And I take a rotten egg and break it in there and blend it. And I pass it around. How many of you would drink it? How many? Raise your hand. Who would drink it? Why do you inject it into your body? There's nothing nutrifying in a vaccine, only poisons. And the inner ingredients are worse than the active ingredients, which are the 5 I just named. And they've got 43 to 63, and not one of them is a beneficial nutrient. Who is going to put, in their rational mind, who is going to inject that into their body? It's insanity. But if you say to somebody who takes vaccines, just what I did, about would you mix and say, would you drink this? Well, why did you inject it into your body? Why do you trust the medical profession to do that? Would you give it to your children? Would you put that in the blender and give it to your children? That's what you're injecting into them. You've got to get people rational, and the only way you can do it is bring it down to that kind of level.
So in other words, the diet for any kind of cancer is pretty well consistent.
No, there are foods that help. Like with spinal cancer, I suggest papaya. With lung cancer, I suggest pineapple. Liver cancer, I suggest papaya and pineapple. Colon cancer, I suggest green cabbage juice and a little bit of pineapple and a little bit more papaya.
How about skin?
Huh?
Skin cancer.
Skin cancer, butter is usually the best. You can put rub pineapple on the area. You could use vinegar, but vinegar is tricky. It will work, but you just have to really make sure it's localized. Put pineapple. Been working on a new thing. Who wants to volunteer? I need people with freckles. People with freckles all over their body.
How about moles?
Okay.
Moles?
Moles too. Moles will work. Yes. Okay. I discovered when I was experimenting with pineapple, because I had some pineapple in my land. And I thought, oh my gosh, this makes my skin feel really nice. And I never put pineapple in my skin before. And so I put it all over my skin just to see what would happen. And the next day, all my freckles were reduced in color by 10%. I used to have all these liver spots on the back of my hands. I've only put it on my back of my hands 5 times, and 80% of the liver spots are gone from my hands.
You leave it on pineapple?
Yeah, pineapple. I just leave it all day. I don't wash it off till the next time I get in water.
Is it acidic?
It's a little sticky.
I mean, like if I have this eczema, is it not good for that?
Yeah, it's good for it.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I'll try it.
And butter.
So you want us to take pictures?
Butter on your skin. I've experimented with some people with eczema, and butter works better than my primal facial
I
butter.
was going to say I'm still not sure. Okay, butter.
So you want before and after pictures from all us and
Yeah, if you have them, definitely document it. I didn't document mine because I didn't realize what was going to happen. I was just doing it to see what would happen. And you see all the freckles that I had in my face last year, through all the injections? And I only put it on my face 3 times.
So the butter first and then the
And the liver spots that I had here and here, gone.
You just put the
3
pineapple,
times.
that's all. 3 times the pineapple.
Pardon?
Tell what you did exactly.
Okay, I took just a chunk. I'll show you. Okay, I thought freckles were natural pigments, which are not very toxic if they come off like this. So what I did was just got, you don't want a yellow one, it's too sweet, too high in sugar. So what I do is just rub it on.
But that's yellow, it's high in
That's it,
sugar.
just rub it on. And sometimes I take a longer piece and just go like this. But look at all those freckles. I mean, I had massive amounts of them. I looked like Robert Redford last year. And now, they're 80% gone. 80% gone.
So you can work from moles too, you don't know.
Yes, I do work from mold.
Okay, so that's what
Takes longer.
freckles and moles.
Takes longer. And then you eat the pineapple.
we'll send you pictures.
So green pineapple. Unripe.
Well, not quite green because it is too acidic and it'll burn your skin. You'll feel it burning your skin. I already tried that.
So it's yellow.
In between. No, yellow, whitish yellow. Just slightly yellow. Unripe pineapple is white. Very ripe pineapple is yellow. In between. They take care of any pigmentation spot because it has a iron deposit. In the liver, was working with one other person that has a lot of those, and the pineapple is also hitting the body of that. Huh? Only once. Like I said, I only did it to my hands 3 times.
And you let it sit all day.
I can bathe for 3 days. I don't bathe. 5, 6, 7 days I go without bathing. But I've been on the diet a long time.
So that you put butter on.
I stunk a lot, when I was younger and not on the diet.
Doesn't answer that.
So then you put butter on afterwards, or just leave the pineapple, period?
Just leave the pineapple. I mean, if you have too dry skin, you need butter. So you put pineapple, let it soak in for about 20 minutes, and put butter on top.
What should you do?
One thing I did that helped remove, I decided to experiment, but I was having that back breakout, as I told you. And I had freckles all, 3 times, 5 times, 20 times the amount of freckles last year that I had today. So what I was doing was I was experimenting. I got massages, a couple a week or one a week. And I took coconut cream, half coconut cream, half butter, and then 3 tablespoons, so it was like 3 ounces of butter, warm, room temperature, 3 ounces of coconut cream, and 3 to 4 tablespoons of pineapple juice. I just take a circle of pineapple and squeeze the juice into it. I blended that together and then took it to the massage therapist, and the massage therapist started working it into my body. So I had 3 massages like that. And it took all of that away. That many, probably only 50% in this area. 80% here, 80% of my face. And that was just in the coconut cream and butter. And her hands, she kept saying when I came in, "Can I massage you? Can I massage you?" And she said, "How do you make this? How do you make this?" Because it took her, she was an elderly lady with all these, marks on her hands and everything. And she turned her hands around in 3 massages, 2 massages.
Can you say one more time what was in it? It was butter?
Yes,
butter, coconut cream, and pineapple juice.
Okay. How much of each?
I said 3 ounces of each. Well, if you go through your whole body. I get a 2-hour massage when I have them, so it takes a lot more of it. If you're getting an hour massage, you'll need half of that.
So you said 3 to 4 tablespoons of pineapple juice.
3 to 4 tablespoons of pineapple.
And the ounces of butter, 3 ounces of butter.
3 ounces of butter, 3 ounces of coconut cream for a 2-hour massage. Half of that if it's an hour massage.
Will this last if I don't use it all right away?
Lasted me, I used it up to 3 days later. And not in the refrigerator. It'd probably be okay to put in the refrigerator. Probably be a little bit better. Wouldn't ferment as much. Because the pineapple will be.
Does it get hard?
Yeah, but then you bring it out again, put in some warm water if you're going to massage.
Does that get rid of the little strawberry marks that men get? And the dead strawberry marks in the body?
Oh, yeah.
Those are iron deposits. And iodine. Iron and iodine deposits.
Wow. So just take the pineapple and rub it on.
Okay. Do you have a question?
Yeah, actually, for sparkling mineral water, is there any good way to get rid of that CO2?
I'm sorry, do you have
For sparkling mineral water, any good kind of get that doesn't have added CO2?
All of them, you have to add the CO2.
I heard that was bad. Is that
No. If it's naturally carbonated, that means naturally carbonated. It says carbonated naturally or sparkling natural water. But if the natural goes before the carbonation or the sparkling, that means the carbons come out of the well. So you have a carbon pocket of gas in the well in your water. They put a pipe down into both and shoot them in together.
Okay, so
All of your naturally sparkling waters are its own gas from the well.
So what's the label?
It's not Coca-Cola carbonated.
Right. What's the label?
Naturally sparkling, naturally carbonated.
Okay.
Yeah. Perrier, Romlusa, Pellegrino, San Pellegrino, San Faustino. Apolinario is one of my favorite. Gerolsteiner is my favorite. Apollinaris is the next. My choice.
For some reason I got my upset stomach. I had that strawberries in it. What do I take for that?
Use some cream or something. Cottage cheese or something. Just take a little bit of that. Or, drink of milk or kefir. You want to drink my kefir?
Okay, thank you. Just a little bit. I just have a nauseous feeling. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay, Bill.
So my question has to do with the food combining with milk. I think in your first book you say you can have some milk with juice for mental alertness, something like that. And then I've known that you don't drink milk and meat at the same time, but I've seen put milk and liver together, and it's fantastic. So I'm not quite understanding when and when not to use milk. First of all, the mental alertness thing, how much milk and how much juice, or how do you do that? Are you waiting in between?
How much milk and how much what?
Juice.
Juice. Well, there are different ways to do it, different stages of different people. Probably the most immediate way to neutrify and get clarity and focus is to suck an egg. That's the quickest way. If you want really long-term focus and concentration, you mix the milk and some juice and an egg together. So,
what kind of proportion?
It depends upon the person and what they digest. But I would say probably 1/3 juice, 2/3 milk.
What kind of juice?
And stick an egg in there too.
And it gets along with itself, right? I mean, I thought that the juice released certain kind of things to digest it, milk released other kinds of things to digest it, but it works, right?
You've got all kinds of colonies of bacteria, and they all work together. They're not isolated here and there, except the ones in the small intestines are different completely from those in the bowel. So those are different. But you've got all kinds of colonies to digest anything almost anything you want, depending on how much vegetation you eat. We've got a very limited amount, just maybe 2% of our bacteria can handle cellulose, and that's it. So we don't want to eat much vegetation, and if we do, we should have it in the form of juice. But you can mix almost everything on this diet, but I don't suggest eating many different fruits with your meats, because it's just too alkalinized.
Sometimes Rossum has a ceviche or a mango pepper kind of thing, something. It's got a lot of vegetables in there, along with the chicken or the fish.
Not good. Not good to eat those carrots with it. Not good to eat that vegetation with it. When I eat that stuff, all those vegetables get tossed.
Yeah. I was thinking about this.
But it still tastes good. You don't have to eat the vegetables the same taste.
Right, you can have the vegetables later.
Yeah, you can do that. Absolutely.
Okay. So, but why, in the course of a day, then, for your recommendations, 6 different meals a day, those are separated to give something a chance to digest before you go on to the next set of things or whatever. But if you take 2 of them and put them together, doesn't that contradict?
Yeah. It will make it more difficult to digest.
But isn't the juice in the milk the same kind of thing?
No, because you're not having that much in this liquid.
How much is much?
There's you're talking about 90 to 90% liquid. Water.
Yeah.
So you only have to break down 8 to 10% of the value in there. If you're looking at meat, you've got to break down 45 to 50% of protein and fat structures. Different.
Okay. Thank you.
Hi. Thank you very much for a very thought-provoking question and answer. I just read your book. I thought it would be nice to come along and treatment violence past. That said, I have a history of 11 years of foot surgery twice, osteoporosis throughout my body, my legs, the vascular blockages. It does not run necessarily throughout my family, but it is kind of general in a way, not as severe in my case. I've read a small part of the book that pertains to big sclerosis. It's about 200 words. What would you recommend for a person my age of about 60 or about 60 to not so much maybe vanquish the plaque, but to reverse or to subdue?
Well, to get rid of that kind of plaque, what I suggest you do is take about 2 ounces of coconut cream, or your fruit meal. 2 ounces of coconut cream, half a cup of of pineapple, and about a quarter teaspoon of vinegar only, quarter of a teaspoon.
Apple cider?
Yes, raw apple cider vinegar. And about a tablespoon of butter, and 2 tablespoons of dairy cream, and 1 tablespoon of honey. And don't drink that fast. You take 30 minutes to drink it. Eat a piece of cheese first, and then 10 minutes after that, take 30 minutes to drink it. And then that'll go in and start taking it out a little at a time, every day. And then that's the way I would slowly work into it. And then as you do it longer, you can put half a teaspoon of vinegar, maybe 6, 7, make it 7 months after you've been doing the other. With only a quarter teaspoon, make it a half a teaspoon of vinegar. Keep doing it. You do it, 5 days a week. Take 2 days off. It doesn't have to be 2 consecutive days. Just so your body can concentrate on cleaning something else up. Your question. Well, you need to get back on the diet.
Yeah.
What was the question?
She's been in London, not following the diet very much, and she's got the fibromyalgia and putting on a lot of toxic weight. And what should she do about it? Well, yeah. As I tell everybody, and those who have my DVD get it because I put it heavily in the DVD. Hormones are for emergency purposes only. The body does not use hormones except in emergency situations. You fall out of a tree. You knock the wind out of yourself. You stop breathing. Your heart stops. What happens? Your thyroid kicks in. Your parathyroid kicks in. Starts your lungs and heart working again. Okay? Now, think about that. You've got a thyroid, 2 parathyroids over each thyroid. You've got to back up to the backup system. That's because the lungs and the heart are the most important organs to survive. You can't stop breathing for more than 4 or 6 minutes without brain damage. Okay, so the thyroid, and they say, oh, it's about hair, it's about weight. That's to get women and men who are vain to say, oh, if I take, thyroxine, my hair will stop falling out. It usually works. However, it doesn't work off the same mechanism. The body uses hormones for emergency purposes. People who are eating toxic foods with additives in it are poisoned. So the body goes into emergency mode, makes hormones. Now what are hormones? 60% fat minimum. What does the body bind with poisons and toxins? Fat. So the body starts making hormones not for its basic emergency purposes like the adrenals for fight or flight. This is just to deal with the toxicity that's getting inundated in the body. So if you're eating enough fats, you shouldn't have a high hormonal level. Good fats, you shouldn't have a high hormonal level. Every one of your hormones should be low. So don't look to that. That's what the pharmaceutical use to say, see, you need hormones. You take ours and you give me $1,200 a month. And that's basically what it's all about. You don't need artificial hormones. You need good fats. Because artificial hormones are made with what? The proteins are synthesized from kerosene-derived proteins from soy. With all that IgG, brain cancer, ovarian cancer, breast cancer, you're just going to make the doctors more money. They get to cut off your breast, cut out your uterus, and go swimming.
What about men with andropause?
Pardon?
Men as they grow older, there's a term called andropause. where testosterone drops completely down flat, and the estrogen increases.
Just eat fat. Eat fat. Yeah.
What about testosterone?
Usually when a person stops generating testosterone, they've collected a lot of toxins in their testicles. They're no longer dry, they're hardened, they're no longer producing anything. So of course they're going to be dry. If you're eating the proper fats and other nutrients, you're going to be cleansing the testes along with the rest of the body. Then you can stick a hot water bottle down there at night, and you're going to force your circulation into that area, and that forces more nutrients.
What about testosterone?
Pardon? Same thing. It's a derived toxin. Just to eat the testes. Go to Rawson and get the buffalo testicles. And eat it with butter. Very tasty. Very sweet. Have you ever eaten urchin at a sushi bar? Urchin? Well, that's what they taste like.
So actually, it's not about my question. I've been taking on my
Absolutely.
Is that the normal thing?
Okay. You heard the term bioidentical? Bioidentical to what? They say human growth hormones. Do you know that not one molecule of any of that comes from human? They're a fraud. It is a fraud. It's all from plant. They're plant growth hormones. They help an herbivore. They're not going to help you. But then they put some petroleum-derived fats in there. And of course your body's going to use fats to protect itself, no matter from where the fats come from. But what happens when the byproduct of that petroleum starts outgassing in your body and you end up malfunctioning and getting cancer? Short term, they've got it down. We'll help you short term. In the long term, we'll really get you. And that's what the pharmaceutical house is all about. Money, money, money. Well, you deteriorate. You're no better than ants to them. They're annoying.
Useless eaters.
Pardon?
Useless eaters.
Yes.
So sleep information, what would you recommend as the number one introduction before the sleep?
Well, a lot of sleep deprivation is a protein deficiency. Another 10 to 15% of sleep deprivation is too many hormones rushing in the body, like testosterone or estrogen. Then you got to do just the opposite. You got to lower, your fat level, lower your hormonal productions within the body. So stay away from goat's milk if you don't sleep, because goat's milk has all that adrenaline precursor. Have you ever seen a calm goat? Even in it sleeps, it's not relaxed.
That's so funny. I was
spasm.
I switched away from the goat's milk and I'm sleeping better. I didn't know that.
Well, I don't have it in my books. It's in the DVD. So.
In the morning, you take a drink.
Pardon?
In the morning, you take a drink.
Never drink it?
In the morning.
No, I'm saying for thin people or people who are hyperactive, don't drink goat's milk. For fat people and people who have diabetes, I recommend goat's milk. And you can drink, you can drink fine. You've got enough fat on you.
But in the morning, not at night.
Yeah, don't have it before you go to bed if you want to sleep well. Or if you drink goat's milk and still sleep well, you might have very active dreams. And you might wake up and say, God, I'm exhausted from this. Wow. Well, as long as it's raw, you have to worry about it. Cooked protein that's caught in cooked casing, that's colorized in like glass. The hormone level isn't high in milk as long as it doesn't have GBSD in it. Very low hormone levels in milk unless that's hormones to make them produce lots of milk. Los Angeles. Your question?
Yeah. Did the raw vegan thing for about 8 years, hit the wall, like you're saying.
It took you 8 years?
Yeah.
Boy, you better man than I.
Yeah. So thank you. I read the book. I did all the protocols and put a lot of weight on. Felt really good. I've actually drinking milk with Dave Wolf and had some raw meat with those guys. So.
Dave Wolf has some raw meat?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
He's got a longevity contract right now, and they're talking about it. Yeah. So they're into it. I guess my question is, because we're a young couple, we're relatively healthy, but I want to ensure that we can keep doing that to the future. What do you suggest? I mean, our freedoms are going left and right. What do you suggest?
You have to. What I did was I set up an organization called Right to Choose Healthy Food. Some of you have already heard about it. And what I do is I contract with farmers. I have 60 farmers throughout the United States, and I contract and lease with them. And I lease all of their animals, and sometimes their pastures and their croplands. So anybody whose club is under the umbrella of Right to Choose Healthy Food, they are part of ownership of that land and those animals. There's no commerce involved. Government only has jurisdiction over commerce. So when you go to Rawson, because of the way I set it up, you're not buying food. You already own the food. You're paying for the farmer, his equipment, and his helpers to produce it and take care of it all for you, to produce the food you already own. So you're not paying for the product, you're paying for the services to bring your food to you. Okay? Government has no jurisdiction, or else they would have closed everybody down, and they haven't. And I protected over 60 farmers in the last 8 years from being shut down and out of business by health departments. So that's what you have to do. You have to give it to an organization, and you have to own leasing is ownership. You lease a car, you got responsibility on everything. You wreck it, you pay for it, you have to buy insurance for it, you kill somebody with it. The leasing company is not responsible for anything. In a lease agreement, you have total ownership until the lease agreement is up. Cow share programs, you don't have that in law. There's no precedent in law. Only in a few states have they, like Colorado. So, like in one court case, the judge says, okay, cow share, what do you own, the hoof? Who owns the other? Whoever owns the other gets the milk. That kind of stupid thinking. But a judge, when he has no precedence, can say anything. But we have 90 years of lease contracts, a history of this country, and never has one been opposed or rejected. So when they took Amos and his father, Amos Miller, and his father, Jacob Miller, to court for not having a permit for producing raw milk, all kinds of raw products, selling raw meat without permits, everything without permits. I said, you don't need them, Jacob and Amos. I will write the documents. I wrote a legal document and listed all that I had to go to the Pennsylvania legal system, legal books, and get their codes out of it and get it all together. But I wrote a 62-page document called Motion to Quash or Dismiss for Lack of Jurisdiction. So, Amos's was 62 pages because old Jacobs is an old man and he can't really argue anything that was written in there, so I just did a 19-page one for him. And they took that to court, and I said, when you go into court, I've got your name on them, your sign and everything. You'll hand one copy to the prosecution, you hand 2 copies to the court for filing, and they'll stamp yours as filed. And then you take that, and it will be presented at court before it starts. The prosecution lifted them, went a few pages, and walked right out. Didn't object to it at all, because why? they didn't want the judge adjudicating on it because it would set up a precedent. Because they still go around raiding right now like they raided Rawson. If that had been on the books in any state, I could have gotten them right away without a long legal process. I could have busted their asses. So they don't want it adjudicated. But when they hear that somebody's on my contract, they don't screw with them. The only reason it happened here, because the FDA came in, the FBI came in and bamboozled the stupid Los Angeles County Health Department and the city attorney's office to come in and raid us. Now they're shaking in their boots. Because I've got a legal action, I can get $1 million minimum from all 4 agencies. FBI didn't identify themselves with a card, but the FDA did, the California Department of Agriculture, the Los Angeles County Health Department, and they were notified in 2005 of our arrangement. That's why they haven't bothered us since 2005. And the city attorney of Los Angeles. 4 government branches that I will sue. Keep sending in donations. Get other people to send in donations. I've only got about $43,000 of the $300,000 necessary to do it.
What can I say about this subject? I don't know how many people know it, but Aajonus sent out an email pretty broadly asking for $100 from everybody.
3,000 people.
3,000, yes. And there are some of us who haven't done it yet. That's why I mentioned this. So while he's here now, if you feel like writing him a check, please do.
What do you make the check out for?
Right to choose healthy food. Or you can just put RTCHF. Right to choose healthy food.
There's another thing about this subject. My husband and I run the website. My husband and I run the website for Aajonus and his products, his newsletters, DVD sets, his books, and I will say that on the blog, as of tonight, we will post the exact laws that need to be opposed and tax your senators and representatives on the federal level to oppose these laws, which are going to impinge on our right to choose healthy foods majorly.
Again, it's on a commercial basis, though. Those are commercial. So I'm still protecting us. Even if those laws go through, we are protected. Okay? We can't touch us. They only have jurisdiction over commerce. So if a farmer wants to sell his food at an open market, if those bills pass, and we let them pass, you will not be able to go to a farmer's market anymore. There will be no farmer's markets in all of the United States. No farmer's markets. We will still get our food because I protected us on a non-commercial level. Because we already own the food. We're just paying for it when we get it for the services and render it to us.
But see me afterwards for the exact website that you can check out the blog for the laws that you can...
Natural Health Solution.
Okay.
Right. Aajonus?
Yes.
I know I've been talking a lot, but I didn't get to ask my question.
Talk.
May I? I asked nicely. It's a totally different subject. Sleep apnea. Do you know what to do about that?
I just talked about it.
Sleep apnea, that's different than what you're talking about. Sleep apnea is the sudden wake up of the body shuts down for a moment in terms of the breathing, and then you wake up suddenly from that.
Yeah, but
not sleeping.
Not sleeping.
Yeah, but this is the particular sleep apnea where you would.
Well, there's a whole gamut. Not sleeping goes under sleep, and not sleep apnea.
Okay.
But there is a form where you wake up startled.
Right.
Don't drink oat's milk.
Right.
Causes that. High adrenaline. Caffeine causes that. Soda pop causes that. So if you're having that, you've got those toxins stored in your nervous system.
So it has nothing to do with the throat closing, that's what they're talking about, that the throat is
If
narrow.
you've got caffeine in your brain, and it drips down into your throat to take care of your tonsils normally take care of that, or your lymph glands in your neck are supposed to take care of it, it's going to close off your throat. It's going to paralyze it temporarily. If you've gotten injections for Novocaine, it causes sleep apnea.
Oh, okay. Okay, so just continue to detox.
Correct.
So what do you think about those masks or any of those other things you're talking about?
Not going to help. It's just, if you sleep on your back and you have sleep apnea, it's never going to benefit. You have to sleep on your sides or on your face. You're fine. Anytime you're on your back side, you're forcing the poisons to go down to the back of the throat. And that causes a cessation in the muscle reaction from the lungs all the way down. Everything's up. And then you're all of a sudden your body says, oh, I gotta breathe. Because the thyroid starts spitting out its hormone. And then all of a sudden the lungs will come back like that because the thyroxine is being produced to start your breathing again. So don't sleep on your back.
So if I take the sleep apnea test, I should do it on my back so that they can find it?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I do generally sleep on the back for other reasons, so that's a change.
There you go. You're going all these extremes.
But it's a new thing for the last couple of years. I mean,
It could be Dr. Novocaine or caffeine, theobromine, could be many things.
It's not caffeine. I never had caffeine. I never drank coffee. I never drank soda.
No.
So I never.
Chocolate?
A little bit. Tea? Not very much. No, that's it. So it could be the Novocaine and that kind of stuff. But that's
Novocaine, Xiocaine, all of it.
Maybe it's just another detox.
It is. So Novocaine, Xiocaine, rather than caffeine. That's the overload.
So maybe that's what the sleep apnea is.
Detox.
Okay.
But it sends it down from the brain into the throat to be handled because of all these lymph glands around here.
Right.
But if it's like Novocaine, it'll paralyze the throat. Even processed caffeine in the body becomes a neurological depressant. So when it gets in the throat, paralyzes all the muscles in the spinal cord going down to the lungs. And the ones that go to the lungs are right here. Poisons get back into there, all of a sudden your lungs are poisoned.
So
They're paralyzed.
I also have a stiff neck, which I've never had before. So it's all the same. We think it's all the same.
Dumping into the neck, trying to deal
So what
with
do you suggest to help it along or to ease it along?
To do what?
To help it along or ease it along, what do you recommend?
Hot water bottles on your neck, a lot of perspiration.
Okay, okay. So just keep doing it.
And eat cheese. Cheese and honey together twice daily after your meal. Make sure you're getting enough minerals.
And then okay, that's what I've been doing.
You have a question?
Yeah, I'm wondering how much butter you use in a day and how much you use too much. I mean, I know that it's a good butter and a raw fat, but pound of butter, that's probably too much. Or
After she asked how much butter is too much. How much can we eat? I don't say there's a limit so you can't digest anymore. When I ate the poison mushroom, I worked at having a pound to a pound and a half a day. Excruciating pain from it, but that's the only way I knew to bring the liver back from 90% death. So I would say, depends upon your situation. If you've been poisoned, there's no limit. Pound and a half, 2 pounds a day, if you have to. On a normal basis, and you're not pregnant, 3-4 tablespoons a day minimum.
how much do you usually do?
Pardon?
How much do you usually do?
Well, when I'm in Asia, I've got it 2 tablespoons a day because I take 15 to 18 pounds with me to last me, for 3.5 to 4 months. So I've got a ration. While I'm here, I don't eat as much butter because I down the cream. Because cream was a rarity anywhere else in the world. At least in the Asian world. I can get milk, but I can't get cream. So I eat probably 2 tablespoons right now, butter a day, but I'm eating half a cup, 3/4 cup of cream a day, plus all the milk that I have, 2 to 3 quarts daily, plus all the meat.
Is it okay to have the butter with the honey, or does that change it completely in terms of how it works in your body?
Yeah, that's fine. If you want to put on more muscle, it'd probably be better to use less honey with your meat and butter kind.
When the rain happened for like 2 months or a month and a half, everywhere also under blood pressure.
The what?
We were under a lot of pressure, and we, every day, for like 2 weeks, I hardly ate anything. And about 3 weeks ago, I was just driving a PCH, and I had this intuition, so I'm like I ate half of a pound of butter in just like in 5 minutes. And my whole pain, all my life just went away. The next day, I had a pound of cream, and all my nerves problem went away. I was able to start being normally for the first time in my life.
But you couldn't do that every day.
No, yeah.
But yeah, like I say, you can do it all the time. So on a regular basis, I would say minimum of 2 tablespoons a day. Okay, there were some people who didn't give a question. Do you want a question now?
I already asked my question.
I have a question for you. You mentioned the egg white in the eye and butter treatment. I had LASIK surgery, which I was very displeased with, and so I had lost low light acuity. I would get very tired, have difficulty changing distance to close focus and so forth. Still have an astigmatism. It's been about 10 years since the surgery, but would those 2 things help the healing of the cornea? Anything else?
The reason that happens, you had LASIK surgery, the reason that happens is keloid. It happens with people who don't break down the dead cells, so they start scarring. They don't build new live cells, they take dead cells and use it like this as dead cells in the scar. I got a little rambunctious, and I pushed to move an aquarium. Instead of taking it by the edge, I pushed it on the glass. It broke right through and cut me to pieces. But this healed and sealed with scar tissue. So none of these cells are alive. They don't produce hair. There's no sensation on them. They're dead cells. So people who keloid, who scar, and your eye's obviously scarred, and you're filled with a lot of dead cell debris behind your eye. So I probably recommend in your situation to put just 1 drop of pineapple juice, clean pineapple juice. You would just squeeze it and get a drop out so there's no pineapple pulp in it, into 1 teaspoon of butter. Mix that around and use that. And pineapple will help break down the dead cells inside. They're causing, because your body has to focus with dead cells in between it. So when it changes distance, it has to change perspective.
In addition to it, I also lost a lot of abilities. My brain worked differently and hasn't completely corrected it. It was very interesting.
It's the anesthetic.
Yeah. Couldn't spell and so forth.
It's the anesthetic.
It's not just that the eyes are really
No, it's the anesthetic that does that. It's a neurological thing. He has an allergy to the anesthetic, or they happen to give you too much or something.
It was the old days when they got, you had it at the beginning, right? 10 years ago, it was like,
Yeah.
right when they were starting to do it.
No, that was long after you were doing it. He did it about the same time, and he healed in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
2 weeks. Yeah, he asked me if it was okay, and I said, listen, you're on a good diet, you're going to heal fast. You could wait 20 years for your corneas to correct. So go ahead and do it. And I had another patient do it just a few months from him, and she's a Chinese lady, and hers healed in 10 days. LASIK surgery. So, when you're on the diet, you were healed because you got the nutrients. You weren't on a good diet when you did it, so your body wasn't healing. Especially if you were in anything like into vegetarianism, no protein. So yeah, it will help. But that little bit of pineapple juice mixed in with the butter will be just enough to absorb into the eye without causing too much of a heavy detox reaction.
Very cool. Thank you.
See, who else didn't ask a question? that didn't have one at the time. You didn't ask a question, did you? Is your name Anna? Pardon? You did, okay. I thought there was somebody else over here that didn't. And you had been over here at one time. Okay. No. So what time is it?
4:46.
What?
46.
Oh God, we're way over time.
Well, let's give Aajonus a hand then.
Supposed to be 3 to 5.